And I really appreciate our next guest for coming on here. It's Gene Taylor, the athletic director at K-State. In what I can't imagine how difficult of a time it has been for Gene over the last 36 hours or so. And I guess I'll start there, Gene, just in asking you, being down in Kansas City and all the meetings that have occurred, I mean, what has this been like for you from your standpoint?
You know, appreciate you asking. It's been a whirlwind, really. You know, unprecedented in a lot of ways. Those of us that are around when 9/11 hit, you know, it was similar, but that was more forced by the government when they shut down a lot of things were canceled, but it was only canceled for a short period of time, a couple of weeks. You know, here it's just going from, well, we're going to play the game with no fans to cancellations. And when you tell your teams that, it hurts. Our seniors on the women's team were, they all were a mess, but it just for the seniors, I was able to tell the women's team. I didn't get a chance to tell the men's, but there was similar reaction from, the kids on the men's team. I think they felt they had a chance. And so you take that away, and now, the NCAA canceling, all competitions and championships for the spring. And now you start to sit back and you go the impact on the athletes and how hard they work. And I get it, safety. We gotta be safe. We can't let this virus get to where it was in Italy. But you start thinking, okay, what about eligibility? Will a baseball player or a tennis player get a year of eligibility back? And how are we going to work through those things? And so yeah, it's just kind of very fluid right now. It kind of made your head spin going through it and talking about it.
Well, yeah, I think you bring up a good point there. There's a lot that will have to be sorted out when you get to that point. And with the NCAA canceling the spring championships, I know you guys have said just up until March 30th that things will be canceled here. Do you anticipate right now that there will be any semblance of a spring sports season, for instance, a baseball season at K-State?
It's a great question. We actually talked about that as ADs. When we came up with the March 30th date, the NCAA hadn't made that decision. And then once they came out with it, there was a lot of text messages back and forth between the ADs asking the same question. And we kind of just sat on, let's stay on March 30th for now. Let's see if things change. And if the virus continues to grow, we may have to come back and, add a few more weeks to it, or we may have to cancel. That's the other question is, well, how is it going to look if we hold our Big 12 championships in the spring and the NCAA doesn't? If things clear up, is it a true championship if you don't get, all your games in? So, I think right now we're sticking with the 30th, but it could change. And as quickly as things changed in the last, like you said, 36 hours, you just never know.
Gene Taylor, K-State Athletics Director, is talking with us here. From a financial standpoint, I'm sure there have to be a lot of things running through your mind there. What are the potential financial ramifications of this as it relates to K-State?
That's a good question. Bob Bowlesby, our commissioner, threw out a number last night of just the tickets for the conference, about $6.5 million. Now, when you start getting in the NCAA monies, those are big numbers for these conferences, and all of a sudden, if you're expecting a check of $40 million or whatever we typically get from the Big 12, and that's reduced by a couple of $1 million, that's a lot of money to make up, no matter what what your budget is. So I don't know if there's funds or insurance for them to cover those things for a year like this. I'm guessing there is. How they decide that, again, there'll be a lot of conversations about that from the board of governors of the NCAA to the conference commissioners, and the conferences will have to decide how they'll distribute the money, or how if they're going to spread it out over a couple of years. So I don't know. Again, these are all conversations that you kind of focus on the moment about should we cancel or not, and then as you go through those, then these are the questions that start to pop in your head and say, oh, what about eligibility? What about financial impact? What about, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, we got a lot of stuff to still work through.
And Gene Taylor talking with us here, K-State Athletic Director. What is the next step as far as conversations with you guys at the Big 12 level as athletic directors?
Well, again, I wouldn't be shocked if we do another conference call either tomorrow at some point to to talk about, do we take it further than what we've done for the March 30th date? Do we consider, suspending our championships as well? So I'm guessing that there'll be another round of calls tomorrow at some point when people get back to their offices. So, I don't think we're done having conversations and figured it out. I think the Big Ten has already come out and canceled everything through the spring. In my personal opinion, that's a little too much right now, that I would push back on that just to see if things clear up. But again, logistics of all of it, and if you all of a sudden miss half your regular season baseball, is it still a good, true championship? But I don't know. Those are conversations I think we just have to work through.
What were all the meetings like as you're having these in real time in Kansas City, and who is Bob Bowlesby having to take information in from, and what is allowing you guys to make these decisions? Yeah,
it's just kind of, we were in our meetings yesterday. It was a regular scheduled meeting with our SWAs, our senior administrators, and faculty athletic reps. And that was spent primarily on name, image, and likeness. And at that point, yesterday morning or yesterday afternoon, games we thought we were going to play them. And then after that meeting broke up, Bob said, I need all the ADs to gather around. And we started seeing information about, cancellation in Ohio. Was it just the first four? Was it the governor of Ohio? Was it an NCAA thing? And so Bob got us together and said, well, what are we going to do? We said, well, let's play it in front of no fans tonight. We were actually going to do it last night for those games. And then Bob said, well, I've got a conference call with the conference commissioners from the other Power Five. We put together an emergency call with our presidents and ADs. Bob came back about an hour later, said that the Power Five schools were going to play their games, which was last night, but they're looking at potentially going with no fans the rest of the tournament. So, Bob called over to the Sprint Center, and, they basically said, we can't really not let fans in. We're going to have a security issue. And so we did last night, and then we got together again later in the afternoon before our game started and said, let's go with no fans. Came up with the number of tickets. And then this morning when we walked in at 8 o'clock, things started canceling, and that's just how fluid it was within, when I got home last night from the game, pretty happy about the win. There was rumors flying that we were going to cancel, and sure enough, we walked in this morning at 8, and that's all we talked about is canceling all the games. And again, he would call the Power Five commissioners. We got on the phone with the presidents. The presidents voted to cancel, and then we moved into the regular where we are right now with the spring sports.
Well, I asked this question not really to be sarcastic, but we're kind of looking for the same things here, silver linings in all of this. Do you see some silver linings? What does K-State athletics do now in this time period here?
I don't know. Honestly, right now I don't see any silver linings. I feel, again, the silver lining is maybe we keep the spread of the virus from going too quick and people don't get sick. That's probably the main silver lining for the athletes and the kids that work hard to want to compete for championships, and that's taken away. A friend of mine's a basketball coach at North Dakota State. The North Dakota State's been in the conference or the NCAA championships a couple times, but those seniors never have. And all of a sudden, and it's not like they go every year. Some of us in the Power Five, been there quite a bit, but it's North Dakota State or some of these mid-majors, to not have that opportunity is just devastating to these kids. So, I think the best thing we can hope for is this thing doesn't spread. We keep it under control, and we can get back to somewhat normal operations in the next month or so. But we'll have to see.